Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our weekly investor update. I'm your host, Dan Theok, Senior Vice President of Investment Banking. It's good to be back for this week's investor update of our second season. If you're a regular viewer, you're acquainted with our investment advisor, Asha Smelly. Welcome, Asha. How are you doing?
Good to be back, Dan.
Good to have you back on season 2. We'll be presenting on Jamaica Broilers Group today, as well as Elite Diagnostics. So make sure you stick around until the end of the presentation. If you're a fan of the content, then don't forget to hit the bell to stay up to date with the channel. We upload content just like this every week. Also, if you're ready to embark on your very first investment journey, Mayberry is here to help you with your first step. Follow us on social media to learn more about how you can get started today. Okay, our first presentation will be Elite Diagnostics Limited, which will be presented by Asha Swelling.
Good afternoon, everyone. So, Elite Diagnostics commenced operations in 2013, and they were listed a few years later in 2018 on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. The company primarily offers services, imaging services at three locations, namely Holborn Road, Ligani, and St. Anne Draxall. The company's performance for the year ended June 2022 showed significant improvements in the revenue and profitability when compared to the same period last year. Elite has continuously increased their asset base with acquisition of state-of-the-art equipment. The company's quarterly profit movements over the years has been sporadic. However, this has shown improvement in the instability over the last 3 years. Q3 2022 compared to Q3 2021, net profits increased significantly by 636%. This performance was record breaking for the company as it noted its highest monthly revenue from one location of $60.3 million. Elite's Achilles heel is the constant breakdown of their MRI and CT machines, which are responsible for generating the bulk of their revenues. We saw how this affected the company when their Saint Anne location was opened in 2019 and was partially operational following the malfunction of some of their equipments, which were remedied by July 2020. The company is keen on expansion with the St. Anne location set to lead the charge by capitalizing on business opportunities on the North Coast as well as outfitting the location with specialist doctors' offices, which they anticipate to contribute to their growth. Elite stock price fluctuates between $2.50 to $3.53, with a spike in price between March to April 2022 peaking at $4.50. This coincides with the announcement of the chairman Stephen Goodin acquiring 35 million units of shares. This movement to us signals strong endorsement of the company's future. Elite's outlook is promising. The company has strong customer loyalty, has a strong referral system from top physicians, and invests continuously in state-of-the-art equipment, and has immense potential for future expansion locally and regionally. With machinery problems being a great limiting factor of revenue, Elite's primary objective should be ensuring the machine downtime is only limited to routine maintenance. Elite possesses significant potential given the stability generally experienced by healthcare services. Once the company's locations are fully optimized, I do believe that the company can experience consistent quarters of profit. The stock closed at $3.53 and has a PE of 25.55 times, trading richly above the junior market PE. And once the company's operations are optimal, we should see improvements in the price to earnings ratio. So for Elite, if you are looking for, or if your objective is short term, meaning at least a quarter or two, then we would say you can sell the stock. However, if you're going more long term, then you can consider holding the stock for the future performance to improve. Dan, any thoughts on Elite?
Hey, thanks for that. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Just two, three things. I do agree it's trading a bit richly right now. And when we look back at the slide where we saw the quarterly profits, my expectation is that Q1 22 loss should go away. We should see a profit coming in of about 15 million, hopefully somewhere thereabouts. If that happens, then we'd see the trailing earnings improve, the EPS improve, and the PE would fall right back to about 19 times. So the market pricing, in my view, sort of is expecting that we're going to have a quarter profit, $15 million profit minimum going forward, and that would sort of bring them back in line. As to what happens thereafter, we can't say. It has been erratic, as you said. Good thing about the space is it's very capital intensive, so there's pretty high barriers to entries. And their biggest competitors that we know of are like Aaron and Chris Radiology and Apex. And I've heard rumors of Apex maybe coming to the market. So for me, it would be a sell in the moment. For those who have it and like it, I would hold it for the long term, as you said. So I agree with you 100%. Thanks for that. Okay, moving along. Up next, Jamaica Broilers Group. Now, this one's one of my top 5 favorites of all times. You've got to have this in your portfolio if you're a serious investor. And we can see, looking at the first quarter results, how the profits are up significantly. But let's start from sales. Sales grown to $22.9 billion, up 31% over the same period last year. And that trend's fairly consistent with their full year audited that we saw come out in April, where we saw sales growing by 29% up to $75 billion, and the profit jumping substantially as well to $3.1 billion, an improvement of 29%. So here we are in their first quarter of the 2022-23 year, and they're continuing with that same kind of growth, 31% growth in sales, 137% growth in operating profit, and then finally a 272% growth in the net profit before taxation, making $1.4 billion for the quarter alone. Bear that in mind when we go back and look at the quarterly performance. But generally speaking, companies doing exceptionally well. Total assets up to $61 billion, an improvement of 17%. And when you look at the total assets carefully, you'll see $3.7 billion of near cash. You'll see inventories at about $15 billion, but maintaining a good general average holding period of about 75 days, actually a 10% improvement over the prior year. Similarly, we see receivables at about $5.4 billion, representing less than 28 days receivable. Again, a 10% improvement in the receivable days over the prior period. So they're being very efficient with the balance sheet and turning profits at the same time. They're operating in a space where their biggest competitor that we know of is CB Chicken. I saw the price reduction, Asha, and I thought to myself, this is a good sign. And here it is. We can see great quarter, $1.4 billion quarter, perhaps the best quarter that we've seen in 2 years, which we'll confirm when we go to the next slide. Before we get there, though, so the stock's trading at $29 right now, which is an amazingly low PE of 8.88 times in a main market where the average is about 10 times today because of the high interest rates. Now, folks, we think interest rates are peaking. In the next 6 months, we'll probably start to see them trending back down. The market is usually ahead of it. And as soon as the market believes interest rates have peaked, I think we'll see PEs returning to 12 times and 14 times what we've been more used to in the main market. That means even at today's trailing EPS of $3.27, this stock is headed more for $45 in my opinion. And that's before we look at the potential future further growth in earnings on the next slide. So on the next slide, you can see in the trailing earnings, just focus on the last 4 quarters, we have one bad quarter still in there, one of those COVID type quarters, very similar to what we saw for Elite. So I'm going to predict the next quarter's profit will be again above $1 billion. That'll improve the EPS to $3.43, and then that sets the tone for the stock to get to $41 at a 12 times PE, or $48 at a 14 times PE. And I think that's within 6 to 12 months away. So this stock's definitely a buy for me because I expect earnings to continue to grow as we're coming out of the COVID period. I expect to see things improve substantially. Next slide shows how the share price has moved. And again, it's depressed in recent years because of the impact of the pandemic and us seeing profitability falling away a bit. But we can very clearly now see that profitability is coming back. We see where the Jamaica operations is now back up to 60% of total revenues again. North America is at 39%, both segments showing growth, and Haiti is under 1%. So with good growth in both US and Jamaica, I really do expect to see JPG continuing to grow their profitability And we're going to come back here in 12 months and I'm going to say, I told you so. You're going to see that stock price would have gone from its current $29 to north of $40. That's my expectation. And that's why I recommend JBG as a buy. Asher, your thoughts?
So I agree with you, Dan. Looking at JBG's financial year 2020, where they actually recovered somewhat from the pandemic, their operations, as you mentioned, in the US as well as Jamaica are performing significantly. So as they continue to tap into the international market, along with the rebound of the Jamaican economy and the tourist arrivals increasing, then JBG is significantly undervalued currently, and you should ensure that you add it to your portfolio before it starts moving away.
Agreed. And that's why it's my top five. Okay, well, thanks for that, Asha. It seems like we're aligned on both stocks today. It doesn't always happen, but I think we're well aligned today. Well, folks, that's it for today's discussions. We're going to keep it short and sweet. I'd like to thank our viewers for tuning in today. Your support is always appreciated. And I'd also like to say special thanks to my fellow panelist, Asha Smelly, for her invaluable contributions. If you're curious about updates on our virtual investor forum, then find us on social media. We share our live stream updates and coming guests on our social media pages. So follow us there for all things forum related. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mayberry Investments Limited, and click on the bell to receive notifications. Keep safe, folks, and remember, wise investors, slow and steady wins the race. Goodbye.